The war pens smelled like metal and fear. Dust rolled in slow spirals across the training yard of Karthos Prime, caught in the hum of grave generators that held 2-ton war mounts in place. Chains clinked. Shock harnesses crackled faintly with warning pulses. And laughter echoed. Not the joyful kind. The dismissive kind. Row after row of Imperial war beasts stood in reinforced stalls, creatures engineered for siege warfare and planetary assault. Their armor plating gleamed beneath artificial suns. Horns polished. Muscle dense and coiled beneath thick hide. Each one tagged with battle lineage. Each one valuable. All except the last. At the far end of the yard, partially shadowed by an equipment tower, stood the unwanted one. Smaller by comparison. Not weak, but leaner. One horn fractured at the tip, repaired poorly. Right forelimb slightly misaligned from an old injury. Armor plating dulled and uneven along its flank. A faint scar traced from shoulder ridge to rib seam, evidence of an early training accident. A red sigil burned above its stall. Defective. Stablemaster Karth strode past the stalls with heavy boots, inspecting inventory with a bored expression. His 4 assistants followed, laughing as one of the elite beasts snapped aggressively at a training drone. "Look at that power," one assistant said proudly. "Pure obedience," another added. Karth stopped at the final stall. The laughter grew louder. "And here," he said, gesturing lazily toward the smaller beast, "is what happens when gene lines don't cooperate." The beast stood still. Its eyes were open. Watching. Unlike the others, it did not strain against the harness. Did not roar. Did not perform. It simply tracked movement. The assistant snickered. "Too reactive," one said. "Doesn't wait for commands. Strikes before signal confirmation. Failed discipline conditioning." Karth tapped the shock harness controls once. Electricity crackled across the beast's armor. It flinched, but did not cry out. Did not lash. Its jaw tightened slightly. That was all. "Marked for disposal next cycle," Karth said flatly. The beast's eye shifted toward the open yard. Then back to the dust beneath its claws. It had been like this since training. Too fast. Too aware. It responded to micro-threat movement before handlers issued directives. That made it dangerous. Not because it was wild. Because it thought. And Imperial doctrine did not tolerate mounts that thought independently. The yard gate slid open with a hydraulic hiss. Conversation paused. A human stepped inside. 17. Light skin windburned from training fields. Brown hair tied back in a tight practical ponytail. No armor. No insignia of rank. Just a rugged gray work jacket and gloves stained from maintenance shifts. Myra Hale walked calmly into the yard. Several riders smirked. The human trainee? "She's late." Karth folded his arms. "You're here to observe elite bonding demonstrations," he said. "Stay clear of the active stalls." Myra nodded politely. Her eyes moved across the polished war mounts. They were impressive. Massive shoulders. Heavy armor. Controlled aggression. They radiated power. But she didn't slow down. She walked past them. Past the champions. Past the crowd favorites. All the way to the far end of the yard. Where the red sigil glowed faintly above the stall. The laughter began again. "You don't want that one. He spooks too easily. Nearly crushed a rider last month." Myra stopped in front of the stall. The beast's eye lifted slowly to meet hers. Up close, it wasn't smaller. It was compact. Tension coiled beneath its skin like a compressed spring. Not fear. Readiness. She stepped closer. Close enough that the assistants shifted nervously. "That one is unstable," Karth said sharply. "We do not waste training time on failures." Myra didn't look away from the beast. "He's not unstable," she said quietly. The beast's ears twitched slightly. "He anticipates," she added. Karth snorted. "He disobeys." "No," Myra replied calmly. "He reacts before you finish thinking." A few riders scoffed. The beast's eye narrowed slightly, still locked on her. She moved closer to the stall gate. The shock harness crackled faintly again as the beast shifted weight. Myra didn't flinch. Didn't raise her hands. She simply stood there. Still. Breathing steady. The yard grew quieter. Because the beast wasn't snapping. Wasn't testing the barrier. It was watching her the way it watched everything else. Assessing. Myra reached forward slowly and placed her gloved hand against the stall's reinforced bar. Not touching him yet. Just close enough. "Easy," she said softly. The word carried no command tone. No dominance. Just recognition. The beast stepped forward. One measured step. The shock harness hummed warningly. Cartha's hand hovered over the control. Careful, one assistant muttered. The beast's fractured horn dipped slightly. Not submission. Alignment. It brought its armored face within inches of the barrier. Close enough that Myra could see faint fractures along its plating. Scars. Not from combat. From correction. She exhaled slowly. And did something no handler had done since the beast was marked defective. She turned to Carth. I want this one. Laughter erupted across the yard. You can't even handle a full-weight mount. That one will throw you in seconds. Cartha's eyes hardened. That creature is marked for disposal. Myra looked back at the beast. Its breathing had slowed. Not tense. Not flinching. Waiting. She spoke without raising her voice. Then I'll take him before you do. Silence fell again. The beast did not look at the others. It did not look at Carth. It did not react to the laughter. It only watched her. And for the first time since being branded defective, it did not look alone. The laughter didn't stop immediately. But it softened. Because Myra didn't back down. Stablemaster Carth stepped forward slowly, heavy boots grinding against the dust. You misunderstand, he said flatly. That creature is not available. Myra didn't look at him. She kept her eyes on the beast. His scheduled for disposal, Carth continued. Genetic inconsistency. Conditioning failure. Combat unpredictability. The beast's ear ridge twitched at the last word. Unpredictable. That was what they called him. Myra finally turned. Unpredictable to who? The assistants exchanged glances. Carth narrowed his eyes. He responds before command confirmation. That is not discipline. Myra stepped closer to the stall. That's awareness. The beast's breathing shifted slightly. Not heavier. Not tense. Attentive. Carth gestured toward the shock harness around the creature's neck, a reinforced restraint lined with current nodes designed to override neuromuscular responses. Remove that harness and he'll injure someone within seconds. Then maybe stop injuring him first, Myra replied calmly. A ripple of discomfort passed through the yard. No one spoke to the stable master like that. Cartha's expression hardened. You believe you understand war mounts better than Imperial breeding engineers? Myra shook her head. No. I think you built him for the wrong rider. Silence followed. The wind pushed a wave of dust between them. The beast shifted slightly in its stall. The harness crackled faintly. Myra took another step closer. Close enough now that she could see microscars along the armor plates beneath the restraint. Correction burns. Shock reinforcement marks. Every time he reacted too quickly, punished. Every time he anticipated threat, suppressed. She reached for the latch on the stall gate. Instantly, two assistants stepped forward. He'll bolt. He'll strike. Myra didn't stop. She opened the gate slowly. The metal hinges groaned. The beast did not move. Its head remained steady. Watching her. Cartha's hand hovered over the shock control. Last warning. Myra stepped inside the stall. Gasps rippled through the yard. She didn't rush. Didn't stare into its eyes as a challenge. She approached from an angle, slightly off-center, allowing the beast full visibility of her movement. The shock harness hummed louder as proximity sensors triggered. The beast flinched slightly at the sound. Not at her. At the harness. That was the first thing she noticed. Not aggression. Conditioned anticipation of pain. Myra stopped within arm's reach. The beast towered over her, armored head level with her chest. Its fractured horn cast a shadow across her jacket. She lifted her hand slowly. Not toward its face. Toward the harness. The beast tensed. Muscle rippled beneath plating. The assistants held their breath. Easy, she murmured. The word again. Same tone. Steady. She didn't look at the latch yet. She placed her palm lightly against the side of its armored cheek. Contact. The beast froze. Completely. Its breathing slowed. Not submission. Not fear. Processing. No shock pulse came. Carth hadn't triggered it. He was watching too closely now. Myra kept her palm there for several seconds. Letting the beast adjust. Its eyes shifted toward her face. Not wild. Not aggressive. Searching. She moved her other hand to the harness latch. The metal clasp was heavy. Industrial grade. Built to hold siege-class mounts. She spoke softly again. I'm taking this off. The beast's muscles tightened, but not in preparation to strike. in anticipation of pain. The yard was silent. Myra disengaged the primary lock. The harness crackled once, warning current cycling. Then went dark. The collar released with a heavy metallic clank and slid free from the beast's neck. Nothing happened. No roar. No lunge. No chaos. The beast exhaled slowly. A deep, steady breath. The first unrestrained breath it had taken in months. Myra stepped back half a pace. Not retreating. Giving space. The beast lowered its head slightly. Testing range. Testing freedom. Its ears pivoted sharply toward distant yard noises, reacting instantly to micro-movements other mounts ignored. One assistant shifted nervously. He's calculating. Yes, Myra said quietly. He is. The beast turned its head toward the open yard. Toward the elite mounts. Toward the riders watching. Toward the stable master. Its muscles flexed once. Power coiled beneath compact armor. Then it did something unexpected. It stepped closer to Myra instead. Not crowding. Not pushing. Aligning. Positioning its body slightly behind her shoulder. A defensive angle. Cartha's jaw tightened. You see, he said sharply. Unstable. It chooses without instruction. Myra didn't take her eyes off the beast. That's the point. The wind carried dust across the yard again. Several riders exchanged uncertain glances. Because the defective beast was not rampaging. It wasn't aggressive. It wasn't confused. It was calm. But alert in a way the others were not. Myra turned slowly and walked toward the open yard. She did not look back. She did not gesture. She simply walked. The beast followed. One step behind. Precise. Silent. No command issued. No reins attached. Just synchronization. The other mounts snorted restlessly in their stalls. One elite war beast lunged at its gate, triggered by the movement. The smaller beast reacted instantly. It pivoted toward the threat before it even fully manifested. Protective posture. Horn angled. Weight shifted. Not wild. Prepared. Myra placed her hand gently against its shoulder plate. I see it too, she said softly. The beast's muscles relaxed slightly. But its eyes remained scanning. Always scanning. Carth stepped into their path. You think you've proven something? Myra met his gaze calmly. No. She rested her hand along the beast's armor. I've just shown you he's not broken. Carth folded his arms. Then prove it properly. A slow smile tugged at Myra's expression. Set up the trial. The yard fell quiet again. Because now this wasn't a mistake. It was a challenge. The stable master nodded once. You ride him tomorrow. A few riders laughed again, though softer now. Obstacle gauntlet. Live drones. Full arena. Myra didn't react. She looked up at the beast beside her. Its fractured horn caught the light. Its eyes burned sharp and intelligent. Not defective. Not unstable. Unmatched. She placed her palm flat against its armored neck. You ready? The beast leaned slightly into her touch. And for the first time in its life, it wasn't being restrained. It was being chosen. The Imperial Arena was not built for fairness. It was built for dominance. Massive grave pillars surrounded a circular field reinforced with adaptive alloy plating. Holographic banners shimmered overhead, displaying the bloodlines of elite war beasts and their decorated riders. Thousands filled the stands, officers, breeders, military strategists. They had not come to watch a miracle. They had come to watch a lesson. Stable Master Carth stood at the central control platform. Today's demonstration, he announced, voice amplified across the arena, will reaffirm Imperial breeding doctrine. A ripple of approval moved through the crowd. Across the staging gates, elite war mounts poured at the ground. Massive. Muscled. Perfectly conditioned. Their riders sat tall in polished armor, neural reins synced directly to mount command nodes. At the far end stood Myra. No ceremonial armor. No neural interface. Just her rugged gray jacket, gloves tightened, brown ponytail secured high at the back of her head. And beside her, the defective one. No shock harness. No dominance collar. Just a simple reinforced saddle fitted manually. The crowd murmured. He looked smaller under arena lighting. That horn fracture is unstable. He'll spook before first obstacle. Myra rested her forehead briefly against the beast's armored cheek. You don't need to prove anything, she murmured. The beast's ears flicked. Breathing steady. Eyes scanning the arena's shifting architecture. Because this place was full of stimuli, micro-movements in the stands, shifting grave currents beneath the floor, drones adjusting in their bays overhead. Most mounts required strict commands to filter distraction. This one absorbed everything. The gate slammed open. The trial began. First obstacle, staggered grave shifts across the field. Elite mounts charged immediately at rider command. Powerful. Direct. Two stumbled slightly as gravity pulsed unpredictably. Their riders corrected forcefully through neural reins. Myra did not kick forward. She leaned. Just slightly. The beast moved instantly. Not charging blind. Reading floor vibrations. Adjusting stride before gravity shifts peaked. They glided through the stagger field like water around stone. The crowd noise dipped slightly. Second obstacle, vertical shock barriers rising at random intervals. Elite mounts crashed through two barriers with brute strength, plating sparking but intact. Myra's mount didn't crash. It angled sharply between barrier cycles before they fully formed. Because it saw the emitter glow before the field stabilized. Anticipated. Not reacted. A few officers leaned forward. That was pre-trigger movement. Third obstacle, live tactical drones. 16 units launched into the air. Fast. Unpredictable. Designed to simulate aerial assault. Elite riders issued attack commands. Their mounts roared upward, smashing drones with heavy horn strikes. Efficient. Controlled. Myra didn't command attack. She loosened her grip instead. The beast shifted its weight lower. Ears locked onto the faintest mechanical whine. A drone dove unexpectedly from behind. Before it fully entered visual range, the beast pivoted violently left, Myra flowing with the movement instead of resisting it, and the fractured horn clipped the drone midair. Perfect strike. Shards rained down. The crowd quieted. Two drones attempted a cross-pattern trap. The beast leapt. Not high. Just enough. Both drones collided midair beneath it. Another eliminated. Carther's hands tightened behind his back. Overreactive, one officer muttered. But it wasn't overreaction. It was microcalculation. The beast wasn't waiting for command confirmation. It was reading threat vectors faster than neural relay systems. Fourth obstacle, rotating blade columns. Heavy mechanical towers spun at unpredictable speeds across the arena floor. Elite riders slowed, waiting for synchronized timing commands from control towers. Myra did not wait. The beast watched the base pistons instead of the blades. The moment pressure valves shifted, it knew the spin cycle timing. They dashed through during a fractional dead zone no other mount detected. The arena fell nearly silent. Because now it wasn't luck. It was superiority. Final phase, direct sparring simulation. Two elite riders were instructed to engage Myra simultaneously. They smirked. Their mounts towered over hers. The signal flared. They charged. Myra didn't pull back. She didn't attack. She lowered her center of gravity slightly. The beast mirrored her shift. One elite mount lunged too aggressively. The defective one pivoted at an impossible angle, forlim adjusting instantly despite old injury, and allowed the charging mount to overshoot. Its fractured horn hooked under the rival's armor seemed just enough to destabilize. Not injure. Destabilize. The second rider attempted a flanking maneuver. The beast saw the shadow before impact. It twisted sharply, Myra flowing with the turn like she had been born to it. Their movement wasn't forced. It was shared. The second mount halted abruptly to avoid collision. And in that frozen second, the arena understood. This was not a flawed beast. It was an adaptive one. It required a rider who did not override instinct, but aligned with it. The final horn blast signaled end of trial. Silence held the arena for several long seconds. Then whispers. Then something heavier. Recognition. Stablemaster Calf stepped forward slowly. He looked at the elite mounts. Then at the smaller one standing calm in the center of the field. Not panting wildly. Not overstimulated. Simply alert. Watching. Myra dismounted smoothly. She removed the simple rein strap entirely. The beast did not move away. It stood beside her. No command needed. Calf spoke into the arena mic. This demonstration does not conclude evaluation. It was the closest he would come to admitting error publicly. Myra rested her hand along the beast's shoulder. It doesn't need to. High above, Imperial officers exchanged private messages. One line appeared in internal doctrine review channels. Adaptive combat response exceeds conditioning models. Another followed. Human rider compatibility anomaly detected. In the stands, the laughter was gone. Replaced by something far more powerful. Doubt. Because the defective beast had not failed. It had outperformed. And the human girl beside it hadn't controlled it. She had kept up with it. The arena lights dimmed slightly as the trial concluded. But somewhere deep within Imperial command networks, a new idea had begun forming. Maybe the beast wasn't unstable. Maybe their system was too rigid. And maybe the wrong rider had been the problem all along. The arena trial was supposed to end in applause. It ended in alarms. The first warning came as a tremor beneath the arena floor. Subtle. Almost mistaken for grave field recalibration. Myra felt it immediately. Not through the reins. Through the beast. Its muscles tightened. Head snapping toward the northern perimeter before any signal flared. The crowd was still murmuring about the trial when the outer shield flickered. Then shattered. A mechanized assault unit tore through the barrier wall in a storm of dust and twisted alloy. 4 meters tall. Black composite armor. Siege-grade plasma cannons mounted on rotating shoulders. No Imperial markings. No friendly transponder. A rogue war machine. Panic erupted instantly. Spectators scrambled from the stands. Elite riders yanked neural reins violently, trying to stabilize their mounts as shockwaves rippled across the arena floor. 2 war beasts reared. One bolted. Another froze, training conflicting with chaos. The mech turned its targeting array toward the highest concentration of movement. The stands. Myra didn't wait for orders. She didn't look toward the command platform. Because the beast beneath her had already moved. It surged forward. Not charging blindly. Cutting a diagonal path across the arena floor, avoiding debris, calculating terrain shifts before falling alloy panels even hit the ground. Myra didn't pull back. She leaned forward. Aligned. The mecha's plasma cannon discharged. A bolt tore across the arena, carving a trench through alloy plating. The beast veered sharply before the cannon even completed its recoil cycle. It had seen the micro-rotation in the mecha's shoulder joint. Anticipated the shot. Elite riders shouted conflicting commands into neural systems. Engage. Retreat. Hold formation. The beast ignored them all. It wasn't waiting for coordination. It was reading the threat directly. The mech shifted targeting to Myra. Because she was moving fastest. Smart machine. Adaptive threat prioritization. The beast lowered its center of gravity. Wings flared for balance. Then it accelerated. Faster than in the trial. Because this wasn't controlled simulation. This was real. The mech fired again. Myra felt the shift in the beast's spine before she saw the muzzle flash. They pivoted sharply, plasma missing by meters. The heat washed over her face. She didn't scream. Didn't hesitate. The beast closed distance in seconds. Too fast for most siege units designed for ranged suppression. The mech deployed anti-cavalry stabilizers, anchoring legs into the arena floor. Too slow. The beast leapt. Compact frame coiling midair. Its fractured horn drove forward like a spear. Impact. Not into the armored chest. Into the knee joint. The mech staggered. Servo systems shrieked under stress. Myra drew the plasma cutter from her belt, the same tool she used in stable maintenance. Not a weapon. But precise. They landed. Rolled. The beast twisted instantly, avoiding a descending mechanical claw. It was reading the machine's weight distribution shifts faster than the mech recalibrated. She didn't command attack. She watched the shoulder rotation. Left, she murmured. The beast was already moving. They circled. The mech attempted a sweeping strike. The beast ducked low, form adjusting flawlessly despite old injury, and rammed its shoulder into the destabilized leg joint. Metal buckled. Hydraulics ruptured. The mech collapsed to one knee. The crowd watched in stunned silence now. Because no command center had coordinated this. No Imperial strategy. No synchronized assault. Just instinct and alignment. The mecha's upper cannons rotated downward for close-range discharge. Myra leaned forward sharply. The beast understood. It surged upward, climbing partially onto the mecha's armored thigh. Unstable. Dangerous. But calculated. Myra reached forward and drove the plasma cutter into the exposed conduit beneath the shoulder joint. Sparks erupted. Energy flared violently. The mech convulsed. The beast leapt clear milliseconds before detonation. The mech collapsed fully, systems frying in a cascade of overloaded circuits. Silence fell over the arena. Smoke curled upward into the artificial sky. Dust settled slowly. Myra slid down from the beast's back. Breathing hard. Hands steady. The beast stood over the fallen machine. Not roaring triumphantly. Not stamping. Watching. Ensuring the threat was neutralized. Across the arena, elite riders sat frozen. Because they had waited for command confirmation. And in that hesitation, they would have lost the stands. Stable Master Calf stepped down from the platform slowly. His voice, when it came, lacked arrogance. You engaged without order. Myra turned to him calmly. He didn't need one. The beast's ears flicked toward her voice. Not toward Calf. Not toward the fallen mech. Toward her. Imperial officers descended onto the arena floor. Scanning the mecha's remains. Unauthorized. Illicit origin. Designed to test breach vulnerabilities. If it had reached the stands, casualties would have been catastrophic. One officer looked from the wreckage to the smaller war beast. That mount reacted before the breach was visually confirmed. Yes, another replied quietly. It detected vibration through the floor. Karth stared at the fractured horn, now scorched but intact. This was not conditioning, he admitted. It was decision. Myra placed her hand gently along the beast's armored neck. It leaned into her touch slightly. Just slightly. The arena's massive screens replayed the engagement. Frame by frame. Elite mounts hesitating. Neural command delays. Myra and the so-called defective beast moving as one continuous system. Not domination. Not obedience. Synchronization. An officer spoke softly into a comm channel. Update breeding classification. Another added. Re-evaluate adaptive response lines. The beast shifted its stance slightly, positioning itself half a step in front of Myra again. Protective. Not because it was trained to. Because it chose to. The crowd did not cheer. They stood. Watching. Processing. Because what they had witnessed was not just a successful defense. It was proof. The Empire had not bred a failure. They had bred something too advanced for rigid control. And the only rider fast enough, perceptive enough, to match it, was a human girl they barely considered part of their doctrine. Myra looked up at Karth calmly. He wasn't broken. Karth exhaled slowly. No, he said. He wasn't. High above, Imperial Command transmitted a single line into Central Archives. Adaptive War Mount, Field Performance, Legendary. And beneath it, Human Rider Compatibility confirmed. The beast lowered its head beside Myra. Not bowing. Standing with her. And in that moment, legend stopped being rumor. It became fact. The arena did not erupt in applause. It remained silent. Because what had happened was not spectacle. It was correction. Smoke still curled from the ruined mech at the center of the field. Imperial officers circled the wreckage, scanning internal systems and breach logs. Elite riders remained mounted, but none moved forward. Myra stood beside the beast. Her breathing had slowed. His had never truly spiked. He stood steady. Alert. Watching the perimeter as if expecting another threat. No reins pulled. No commands given. Stable Master Karth approached slowly. For the first time since Myra had stepped into the war pens days ago, his posture held no authority, only assessment. You engaged without tactical oversight, he said. Yes, Myra replied calmly. You acted without authorization. Yes. And you were correct. The admission echoed louder than any applause would have. The Imperial High Marshal descended from the observation tier, tall, armored, flanked by two advisors. His presence shifted the atmosphere immediately. He stopped several meters from Myra and the beast. The creature's ears flicked toward the Marshal, not aggressive, but evaluating. The Marshal studied the fractured horn. The repaired forelimb. The compact musculature that had outmaneuvered siege machinery. Then he looked at Myra. You claim this mount is not defective. I know he isn't. You believe Imperial doctrine failed to evaluate him properly. Myra met his gaze evenly. You evaluated him for obedience. Not capability. A ripple passed through the officers behind the Marshal. The High Marshal turned toward the arena screens, replaying the breach again. Frame by frame. The mech tearing through the wall. Elite riders waiting for instruction. The defective beast already moving. The Marshal folded his hands behind his back. Our war mounts are bred to follow command hierarchy. Myra rested her palm gently against the beast's armored shoulder. He doesn't wait for permission to protect. Silence. The Marshal turned back slowly. What is his designation? Karth answered automatically. Unit 7 Delta. Adaptive line variant. Myra shook her head. That's not his name. The Marshal raised a brow. You have named him? Yes. The beast shifted slightly closer to her, as if sensing the shift in tone. Rexa. The name hung in the air. Not an imperial code. Not a registry number. A name. The Marshal observed the beast carefully. Rexa, he repeated. The creature's ears twitched at the sound. Not because it understood language. Because it understood tone. Recognition. The Marshal turned to his advisors. Begin classification review. A murmur spread through command ranks. Breeding engineers shifted uncomfortably. Because review meant admission. And admission meant the Empire had almost destroyed one of its greatest assets. The Marshal continued. Update doctrine parameters. Adaptive mounts unsuitable for rigid command structures. Human neuroresponse riders recommended for high reactivity lines. Shock harness protocols suspended pending reassessment. Gasps rippled across the arena. The shock harness protocol had been foundational for centuries. Myra didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She just rested her forehead briefly against Rex's armor. You hear that? She murmured softly. Rexa exhaled through his nostrils, warm breath curling in the air. Across Imperial networks, footage of the breach spread rapidly. Outer systems replayed it. Military academies analyzed it. Breeding labs paused scheduled disposals. And one sentence began appearing in training manuals. Adaptive does not mean defective. Weeks later, Myra and Rexa stood at the edge of a different battlefield. This one not for demonstration. Not for politics. A border skirmish zone where pirate raiders had harassed supply routes for months. Imperial cavalry prepared behind them. Nervous. Watching. Waiting. Myra did not issue a command. She simply leaned forward slightly. Rexa surged ahead. No hesitation. No fear. He did not charge blindly. He cut through terrain like water finding the fastest path downhill. Reacted to ambush vectors before blaster fire fully formed. Anticipated flanking maneuvers. Turned chaos into opportunity. Imperial riders followed behind, slower, more rigid, but learning. By the end of the engagement, the raiders had scattered. No civilian casualties. Minimal structural damage. Efficient. Precise. Legend did not grow from noise. It grew from repetition. And everywhere they deployed, the same pattern followed. Rexa moved before panic spread. Myra aligned instead of commanded. They did not overpower the battlefield. They read it. Months later, Imperial Archive released an official record. Case study, Unit 7 Delta reclassification. Final entry. They attempted to break adaptive response into obedience. A human rider aligned with it instead. Outcome, combat performance exceeds elite lineage standards by 37%. Status, legendary. In the war pens of Karthos Prime, new trainees walked past polished champions and paused instead at the stall that once held the defective beast. Because now the plaque above it read, Rexa, Adaptive War Mount. First of his line. Myra stood beside him as always. Not in armor. Not in ceremonial rank. Just steady. Calm. Confident. A young human girl who had seen what others missed. Rexa lowered his massive head slightly beside her. Not submission. Recognition. They had called him useless. She rode him into legend. And the Empire would never evaluate power the same way again.